In his first major teaching document, Pope Leo focused on the preservation of human dignity in the face of artificial intelligence. Titled Magnifica Humanitas, the document describes AI as a new industrial revolution and calls for disarming, in the Pope's words, the technology by removing it from military and economic interests, imposing stricter regulations, and encouraging broader public participation in shaping the technology's future. The document stresses that AI is not human, arguing such systems, quote, merely imitate aspects of intelligence and lack experience, emotion, relationships, and moral agency. Leo goes on to acknowledge AI can be a valuable tool, but draws a clear line between computers and the spiritual depth of human beings. Also argued for the technology to be more inclusive as it's put together, as opposed to coming back and trying to apply morality after. It also comes as President Trump is facing criticism after postponing a long-awaited executive order on artificial intelligence. According to the Washington Post, the decision to scrap the signing came after 11th-hour phone calls between President Trump and industry leaders, including SpaceX CEO Elon Musk and Meta founder Mark Zuckerberg. They and others reportedly warned Trump that a proposed safety vetting system could inhibit artificial intelligence development. Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona actually criticized Trump for standing down, writing on social media, quote, America cannot lead in AI if our policy is determined by whichever billionaire gets the president on the phone last. We need a strategy that supports innovation, protects workers, strengthens national security, and makes sure this technology benefits the country, not just a handful of big tech companies. It's a lot for us to dig into with White House reporter for Politico, Sophia Kai, here on set with me. So, Sophia, let's just start first with the Pope. Of course, the Pope's encyclical comes weeks after this pretty public spat that was mostly just driven by the president on social media. But it also comes as he's really taking to task AI and tech leaders, with one of the founders of Anthropic sitting with him as he gave these remarks at the Vatican. How did the encyclical land at the White House?
It's really seen as the Pope trying to influence policy. I think that's really what it is. But of course, the Pope will do Pope things. And it comes at the same time as Trump, for months, has tried to craft some sort of framework for regulating AI, you know, putting some guardrails on these advanced AI tools. I mean, this is a process that had started early last year, right? So it's been months, and then Mythos lands. And the group that's been working on this, and it's a pretty broad group with various stakeholders, they had to start from scratch again. And, you know, so, of course, the AI order was supposed to come, and we can talk about why it did not come.
Yeah, well, let's talk about why it did not come. What was the concern coming from industry leaders? We mentioned Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, but it also came from the person who previously was the AI czar for the administration, David Sacks. What was the concern?
Former AI czar.
Exactly.
So that was one call that came the morning that the EO was supposed to land. Actually, there was a signing ceremony that was already scheduled, and the president gets this call from David Sacks. And David Sacks tells him that the EO would effectively make the U.S. less competitive in the AI arms race with China. And the president seemed persuaded. So he came out with reporters. He decided that he was going to pull it, and he said, look, I'm pulling this because there's aspects of this executive order that I don't like.
Is it just that industry leaders would prefer not to be regulated, because that is a tale as old as time in every sector, not just AI? Or is it just that this technology moves and is innovated so quickly that it makes it really hard to regulate when what you're regulating is changing basically on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis?
So the EO really puts out this voluntary process for the government to have eyes on the technology first. And what David Sacks was concerned about, and what he relayed to the White House, is that these voluntary processes may one day become mandatory. Now, I spoke with senior White House officials who were involved in the drafting, and they say, look, David Sacks was read in on this. And I got a copy of the EO, and if you read the fine text, nowhere in the EO does it say this is mandatory. In fact, there are sections of it that say this will not create a mandatory process. So that is the push and the pull. We know that people at the highest levels of the White House were caught off guard by David Sacks's call because they really thought that we were going to put this out.
But is this an administration that actually wants to regulate AI, or are they keen to just let the private sector stay private, do what they want to do?
I think the biggest concern is something like Mythos. You know, the word that I kept hearing was freaked out. We know that Secretary Bessent was freaked out. We know that people in the White House are freaked out.
Because we know that it's a new kind of AI that just moves so much faster and could present real security concerns.
Yeah, it could do offensive cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. And that is the big thing. We're talking about banks. We're talking about hospitals. No one in the Trump administration wants a cyber attack like that, especially by something like Mythos to happen under their watch. So, they want the tech world to do their tech things, and, they've got the tech bros in their ear. This was the case since Doge came in, right? Elon came in and brought along with him all of these Silicon Valley tech entrepreneurs, and many of them still stayed, or if they haven't stayed, they still have the president's ear.
The president's ear, and also a lot of proximity and relationship with Vice President J.D. Vance, who could be one of the people to vie for the Republican nomination in 2028. That is, of course, one of D.C.'s favorite parlor games. But I think if you marry the way that the White House has such proximity to the rarefied air of these tech bros, if you want to carry your term, and then you contrast that with how the Pope is talking about this being something that only further exacerbates the have and have-nots, the concern that this very small percentage of mostly male tech founders control such a powerful technology. I mean, that feels like a real difference in the way that these two entities are even looking at AI itself. Right?
Those are the two forces that have been shaping the drafting of this executive order, which we know they still want to put something out. Now, the person in the administration who has been pushing for stricter regulation is Pete Hegseth. Remember, the Pentagon had that spat with Anthropic, and we know that Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, all of these people will continue to have a say in AI policy.
Continue to have a say in AI policy. They are the first people to get a crack at regulating AI because this technology is just completely blowing up right now during the course of this tenure. It's going to be fascinating to see where this ends up going. It's going to have a very long tail and impact on all of us as well. White House reporter for Politico, Sophia Kai, thank you for coming on, talking about your reporting.